Welcome back to Cardinals on My Time. I am your host, Scott Plaza, and I am coming to you after a busy weekend spent at Busch Stadium where I got to cover the Cardinals winter warm-up event. Today, I'm going to bring Thomas Galvain back in, and we are going to share our reactions to some of the player interviews from the weekend, as well as talk about what remains on Chaim Bloom's off-season checklist. It's good to see you. Thanks for coming. Let's get started with Cardinals on My Time.
I've been thinking about this, Mr. Han. If I'm here and you're here, doesn't that make it our time?
Now, before we get going into today's episode, if you want to get a full recap of the weekend, make sure you go check out my Twitter at Mr. Plastastic17, as well as the Redbird Rundown podcast, YouTube, and Instagram pages linked in the description. Now, before the weekend, I did promise some giveaways during the winter warm-up, and I want to say I did make good on those promises, but to a point. It was freezing out, so I had a little idea of doing a little man on the street action, but that was nixed pretty quick. But if you did happen to be one of the people I ran up to on the street and I gave you a little pack of cards, some stickers, or some old stadium giveaways, make sure you let me know on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or elsewhere so I can give you a shout out as well. If I didn't get to you, don't worry. I promised I'd do a giveaway. I've got some more to send out, so make sure you're following me for that. So back to winter warm-up. Once again, special thank you to Carson and the Cardinals media relations team for the invitation to the event and giving me those media credentials so I could sit in the interview room at Busch Stadium. It was truly an incredible experience and one I will never forget and hope to do again because I took home some lessons and some feedback while sitting in the room with the Cardinals beat reporters like Jeff Jones, Derek Gould, and John Denton, as well as guys like Brandon Kiley who do things at the national level. So hopefully, again, I get to do this so that I can implement that feedback and learn even more next time. But before I get to Thomas's take, what I want to do is I want to start by sharing 3 different interviews that I had with the offensive players, Alec Burleson, Thomas Ajacey, and Masyn Winn. I want to share them all back to back because they all shared the same common theme of the fact that even though they're young, they understand that they're going to have to be leaders and pull on the same end of the rope. So here are all 3 of those interviews back to back.
Speak up more, try to lead more with your voice. I know you want to lead with your play and as an example, but do you try to be more of that leader?
Yeah, somebody's got to. Somebody's got to. I think I was talking about this earlier today, but it's going to take not just the Donnies and me and new bars. It's going to take everybody kind of stepping up, and because there's going to be a lot of guys coming up from the minor leagues that are going to help us win ball games, and they're going to have to be, I don't want to say show the ropes, but they're going to have to kind of, it's a lot when you get called up to the big leagues, right? There's a lot that comes with it, and so I think it's going to be a full team effort of everybody pulling in the same direction, and so. But for me, yeah, I mean that's what I want to do. I kind of want to be that guy that people go to, and obviously I'm still learning. I'm still trying to make adjustments in this league. So any of my experience that I can give to these guys and kind of show them the way, or make their adjustment a little bit easier and seamless. That's what I want to do. So yeah, it's weird you call me the old guy, but yeah, I think that just comes with the territory. So I'm super excited to have that role.
There's definitely a lot of guys with more time than me, but as far as like being leadership and stuff like that, I feel like I'm probably up there on the team, and it's something I take pride in. I'm going to go out there and compete and play how I play. But I mean, obviously you got guys like Donnie, Burley, Newbar. I mean, we got some guys that these younger guys can also look up to. And for me, I don't think it's going to be as much of like a veteran presence. For me, it's going to be, especially with, I'm really looking forward to playing with JJ, and I think. He didn't get, I got that little 1 month in 23 where I got to kind of warm up for 24, and, he didn't get that. So, I want him to come in comfortable and just be, be himself. I don't want him to be walking on eggshells or anything like that. I want him to go out there and just have a lot of fun. So that's going to, spring training going into the season, like I'm going to really try to take, I don't necessarily want to say under my wing, because, we're a year apart, but I just want to be there for JJ and let him, be great.
I feel like everybody being the same age is honestly helpful, just because we're all kind of similar stages in our life. We have a similar goal, and I think it's just, it brings us together. And that's what is going to bring us together and kind of propel us to try and be successful. Just having that chemistry, and I think it's just might be even easier to build that chemistry.
So we heard Burley kind of say from the beginning, like, "Hey, somebody's got to do it," sarcastically, but then talked about how he understands that he's the quote unquote veteran of the group. They said it's going to be a team effort because in years past they relied on Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, whose leadership style didn't really seem to mesh with the younger generation. But Thomas, what stuck out most when you heard those guys talk?
I love Sajaci talking about everybody being the same age. I know, like, just in general, in the workforce, you work a lot better with people who are similar ages, similar interests to you. And I never really thought about that with the roster for next year. They're all pretty much within 3 years of each other, so they have similar life experiences. They even talked about kids versus girlfriends versus married, that kind of stuff too, so they can all relate to each other. I think that's huge. I never thought about that from the social perspective of the clubhouse.
Yeah, well, and that's what like they asked Burley, like how is Donovan dealing with the trade rumors? Donnie wasn't there this weekend, and even Burley is like, hey, he's fine. He's got a kid to worry about. Like we
Yeah.
were all going through these life things that we're going on, and he's like, it's actually more difficult on the wives because the wives have started to become that group of
Yep.
they're the support system because their husbands are out at the ballpark for 8 hours a day and they're always on the road, so they had to find that support system. And that's what was very interesting too, is that Burley is like, yeah, like it's harder on the wives. Like we understand it's a business and that's something that we're gonna have to deal with, but like then you think about the family dynamic, and like you're saying, Thomas, they're all the same age, probably got kids around the same age. Like it's a lot that's gonna kind of change at the same time. Okay, so I
Yeah,
think
absolutely. And
go ahead.
I think it'll be nice to see who does actually step up. Like you mentioned, the Goldschmidt, the Nados, they're all gone. Burleson seems like an excellent candidate for now. Donnie's still around, and he's been getting rave reviews from his teammates too. So there's a lot of young guys, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there are any leaders present.
Yeah, and the young guys are what's going to be fun too, especially when we're talking about like how to market the Cardinals in a 73 win season to St. Louis. Like you're going to need the young, energetic guys. So I hope that the guys like Masyn Winn and Victor Scott can let their emotions show a little bit to get some energy and excitement, even if the
Yep.
winning isn't right there. And that's why I think like the offense has the potential to be fun. I didn't know how to say they might not be good, but they have the potential to be fun. So I think I didn't want to say that insulting either, because I do think that there's a lot of talent in the offense. It's just expecting, 9 guys under the age of 27 to to put up 3 to 5 WAR seasons
Yep.
is gonna be tough. As of right now, it sounds like in mid-January, like everybody in the offense is on the same page. They understand that there's opportunity available, but they're gonna need to pull each other kind of all in that same end of the rope. But I want to go from the offense then to another inexperienced group of the pitching staff. The team traded Sonny Gray pretty quickly, and he received multiple shout outs, which was very interesting because I didn't think we heard a lot about how he led. And that's, again, nothing against Sonny. I just don't think we heard a lot about it. But we heard a few pitchers talk specifically about Sonny Gray and how he was somebody that they look up to, and how he taught them things that they're still using. So they lost Sonny Gray, and then they also, as much as it's a celebratory loss, Miles Michaelis is also still a free agent. So I don't want to close the door on it completely because he is a free agent. But he was one of the most consistent members of the rotation since 2018. But now the rotation, like that, we can write in with pretty firm pencil: Matthew Liberatore, Andre Pallante, and Michael McGreevy. They kind of figure to be in the rotation conversations right now because those are the 3 guys who consistently started last year. They're going to be joined by Dustin May. So free agent signing, looking to prove something, bounce back. Reliever turned starter Kyle Leahy, and then trade acquisitions Richard Fitz and Hunter Dobbins, as well as prospects like Quinn Matthews, as the Cardinals try to figure out who is going to be that starting 5, starting 6, starting opener, closer, whatever. But before we get into looking at what each of the guys said, Thomas, what's your current take on the rotation? It kind of seemed pretty cut and dry, and then they made some trades that came back with major league talent, and then they made the Dustin May signing, and it looks like they're still kind of in the market. So where do you think they're at right now?
Yeah, it's a pretty crafty rotation. We're 7 guys deep right now, from Liberatore, May, Plante, McGreevy, Leahy, and then Fitz and Dobbins. You got Quinn Matthews as very solid AAA depth. I think there's a lot of flexibility there. I mean, you could throw Pallante and Leahy as swingmen out of the bullpen, pretty much like the Steven Matz role from last year. And then you can fill in with the other five guys is there with Quinn Matthews down in AAA. You've got Eshawn Henderson in AAA as well, Bryson Motts, who's there. There's a lot of depth. It's young, it's unproven for the most part, and there's a couple of injury concerns in there. But I think that's also pretty exciting too. The same way with the lineup, there's a lot of room for growth and potential there too.
Yeah, and that's where the word depth doesn't have to be used negatively either. Like it's quality depth that's all at the AAA or major league level that if they start, even if it's for, 5, 10 starts at a time, it's not going to be something that we are going to turn our head away from. Like there's the options and there's the potential to be good. But there's three guys that I got to talk to this weekend that are at three completely different points in their career, and they all kind of had some different things to talk about. So I want to start with Quinn. So Quinn Matthews had the invitation to Major League Camp last year after being the pitcher of the year. He's trying to bounce back after what was called a down season, and he's like, well, if that's a down season, then I guess that means I'm doing something okay. Pallante is trying to regain his spot in the rotation. And I'm saying regain because, like Thomas just said, there are 7 deep, and I think there is going to be a real competition with that. And he had a tough second half. And then Michael McGreevy finally has a solid role after going up and down to Memphis a dozen times, it feels like. But let's start. I'm going to talk. We'll have opportunity to talk about each of them, but I want to start with Quinn because he was my first interview question that I got to ask.
Yeah, I don't know if people know this, but I think I was literally the first guy sent down last year out of our big league camp. I think it was the first meeting, so I was like, all right, so maybe I'll just be the second meeting this year. That's the expectations. Hopefully not just be the first guy. But no, I mean there'll be a lot of new faces this year, so it'll be interesting to see that dynamic. And last year I was put in the best situation I could have been. I was basically Sonny Gray's dog most of the time. I was basically, hey Quinn, like just try and absorb as much info from this guy as you humanly can. And I tried my best, and whether I annoyed him or not, or had to hang out with his kids just to try and get bits and pieces of his knowledge, I was willing to do it. And unfortunately, won't have that opportunity this year, but hopefully it's prepared me not just for this spring training, but for the rest of my career. So I'm appreciative for Sonny.
You did get the.
All right, so thoughts about that again? That's the shot of the Sonny Gray, and he did it kind of again in a humorous way. But from what do you think? I think he's kind of on the outside looking in right now. But what do you think about his attitude or anything else?
Yeah, I think he'll be on the outside looking in, which is a shame because he's really talented. You mentioned earlier that what he had last year was a down year by some, but it was still pretty good. I mean, he finished the year with the ERA in the fours at AAA, pretty high at an advanced level with the new ball for him as well. I never knew that Quinn had that sense of humor to him, but I think it's awesome that he does have that side to him. And then you also had his desire to want to learn from other people. Sometimes you can get really talented pitchers and other players who are like, no, I know everything. I'm good. I don't need to lean on these vets. But the fact that he was taking everything he could in just short time in spring training, that's nice to see. It's redeeming quality.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think he's got a chance, but he's going to have to show his health, and I think they're going to be comfortable with him starting in AAA. But like you said, he did have a little bit of humor, a little bit of that a vibe to him that I'll touch on here in a second. But he's still into crypto. That was one of the questions that he was asked because he was a crypto bro at last year's winter warm up, and he said, "Yeah, this is going to be the year for crypto." So check Quinn out for your insight of. Although he did say his mom hates that he does it. So let's go from Quinn, who's trying to bounce back in one way, to another player who's trying to bounce back, but in a bigger way in the major league roster, in Andre Pallante.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's different. I know I've had the pleasure of playing with so many good pitchers. Sonny, you talked about Lance, Gibson, Wainwright, and we're going to have a lot of young guys, and I'm going to do my best to relay what they've taught me to them, kind of take on that role, just trying to explain, like, hey, this is what these guys told me throughout their careers and stuff like that. So kind of be like the middleman for that information. But I think there's going to be a lot of, kind of team building with that aspect of it. We're all guys in similar aspects of our life, similar ages, and, so I think we're going to be a lot closer. I think, and kind of one thing I've said pretty repeatedly over the last couple of days is really the energy behind every single play and pitch and at bat that goes on in our games. No one on this team is going to take any of those for granted, not a single pitch. So I think you're going to see us Cardinals as a team play every pitch as if it's a life or death situation. And I think that's going to be very exciting for people to watch.
Yeah, I thought Andre Pallante took that pretty well for somebody who had a tough second half, like I said. But my question was, how are you going to be, while you're working through your own things, how are you going to be a veteran on the staff as one who has the most starts, but also somebody who's trying to work through your own stuff? So, Thomas, what did you think about what Pallante had to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I know in his interview he talked a lot about throwing more strikes. I think that's nice that he's able to look back and see what he needs to work on. I think I remember seeing from a couple other podcasts that he was kind of like the guy who got picked on by the veterans a little bit here and there. Like he got teased, he got pranked a couple of times. So for him to go from that to like the true veteran, and I don't think he's going to do the same thing. Like he's not going to be a prankster, but he's not going to be getting pranked anymore. That's like an interesting clubhouse inner look to me. I think that's fun. And then I really like what he was saying about the life or death situation with every pitch and play. It goes back to the chip on the shoulder that we were talking about before, something to prove for these guys. They see 2026 as their opportunity to prove what they can do. I think that's going to bode really well in the front half of the season. Now, whether there's a lot of fatigue that comes into that once we get to August and start getting hot at Busch Stadium, I think that we'll see how that turns out. But it's definitely exciting to see them being in on every single thing and wanting to prove themselves.
Yeah, the original thought of that question was the Cardinal Territory podcast where he talked about getting picked on, but I was trying to find the best way in that professional situation to be like, hey, like after getting teased all year, there, what are you going to be like now? So I was trying to do it that way, but I'm glad you picked up on that because it is a shift that he is going to have to make because he does have that experience.
Yep.
So then finally, let's go to McGreevy. He has probably the most solid role of the guys that were there this weekend, besides Dustin May. But then that's still that health question as well. So let's hear from McGreevy. I want to first say he had a really cool persona in the interview. He had energy, he answered questions completely, little back and forth with the media. And just to touch on Quinn for a second, he's like, Quinn's a real smart guy. He was, and McGreevy was asked like, how are you going to deal with Quinn Matthews, who seems to be so hard on himself? Because Quinn described himself as he said, I'm not a pessimist, but I'm a realist. And McGreevy, he did his Quinn Matthews impression. He's like, he'll come up to me like, yo, Greavy, I suck. and he's like, what do you mean? You just struck out 12 guys. And he's like, oh yeah, but like I walk too, so like I'm not very good. And he's like, I had to take that leadership role to like let him know that like, yo, dude, you're really good at what you do. So I thought that was really funny. So I want to go to McGreevy then.
Yeah, being a vet came quick. 91 days, now you're a vet. It's cool. Like when we got Dobbins, when we got Fitz, we got May, like I asked Chaim for their numbers so I could reach out to them, just like, hey, like if you need anything, let me know. This is where guys normally live in spring training. This is where we normally live in St. Louis. So if you need anything, like don't be afraid to text or call. But it's weird being the vet at this young.
All right, so there is veteran Michael McGreevy after 91 days. What do you think?
Yeah, so McGreevy was drafted the same year as both Dobbins and Fitz. He barely passes up both of them with innings, and he's already calling himself the vet to the guy. Like, that's awesome that he's taking that on. There's nobody else really. I mean, you got Andre Pallante, you got Liberatore, you got Dustin May who have some innings. But I think this is another one of those cases where he can really relate to those other guys, just with the same age, same stage of life, that kind of stuff. So the fact that he was one of the first people to reach out to Fitz and Dobbins, I think that's pretty cool. He's calling himself the vet, 91 days. That's pretty funny too. So once again, the sense of humor there is playing. I think it seems like a really good cohesive group that they put together there.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be exciting. And then we heard that word a lot, whether it was, even Bill DeWitt the third used the word exciting with it. So I thought that was very fun. It seems like everybody again is on that same end of the rope. So last thing on the pitching before we start to wrap this up, we heard multiple guys working on new pitches, new shapes and stuff like that. Multiple guys talked about a kick change. Off the top of my head, Pallante and Gordon Graceffo for sure said they were working on it. And Pallante talking about he's trying to get a ride fastball. So he's trying to find a fastball that rather than cuts will go the other way and kind of work that upper part of the zone. So hearing many of these guys talk about the kick change, I wonder how often we're going to hear about it through spring training early in the season, kind of like the torpedo bat phenomena we heard last year that really kind of tailed off. But there's always something new that, it's going to be something exciting to hear about. All right, so moving the pitching really, really quick to what everyone was excited about, and that was the fact that JJ Wetherholt was in the room. And I don't know if you had the opportunity to see it, but he went behind the scenes at winter warm-up and dressed up in a disguise and was pranking around. So if you haven't gotten a chance to see that, check the Cardinals social media. Wetherholt put on a
Yep,
wig and a mustache and stuff, so
I
make sure
did
you
see
check
that.
that out. But I want to finish off the conversation with Wetherholt. The biggest news seemingly was the fact that he's not Korean enough to play in the World Baseball Classic. But he had some really fun, exciting times with the media. Again, a good personality. And I have another clip that I've shared on social media, so I'll just let you go find that over on Mr. Plastastic 17 on Twitter. But JJ had a lot of talking points, so I wanted to point to one where he was asked about the difference between last spring training, this spring training, and where kind of everything goes. And he was like, last spring training, I was just learning. I was learning about the travel. I was learning about, just how the game works. And then what got me, and I kind of got like the shivers at that time, and I don't really know if anybody else noticed it. He's like, last year was about the experience. This year it's about making the team. And I was like, dang, that's what I'm talking about. So
Yeah,
Thomas, where are you at with JJ? Are you excited? Take your time. Does the Nato deal make JJ move over to third? Or what do you think we're looking at? Is that still going to be hinging on Donnie?
man, I'd love to see him opening day, hot corner, second base, either one figured out with Nolan Gorman and Sajasi there. But I think it'd be awesome. The energy level behind a Weatherholt appearance there would be great. I think he's shown everything he needs to in the minors. I don't think this is as big of a deal as it used to be, but there might be some time management there with his clock starting too early, especially if there is the potential for 2027 being lost and the players losing a year of service time there as well. So there might be some fear and some worry, but he's seriously legitimate rookie of the year candidate, which would get the team an extra draft pick. And then he gets some financial compensation on top of that. So all around, I think it'd be awesome to see him opening day, third base. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, and it's easy to say January 20th as like again we haven't seen him take a bat in spring yet, but I mean
Right.
he held his own at every level he's been at, and talks around from everybody was like, this dude's legit. I mean, he was teaching Jordan Walker stuff about
Yep.
stealing bases. Masyn Winn was surprised at working with him. He said he's very excited to do that. Anybody that played with him, John Denton from MLB.com, like asked like Leo Bernal, like, tell me about JJ. He asked Liam Doyle, tell me about JJ. So like everybody has something positive to say about it, and the excitement is real around him.
Even Heim on the
Um,
main stage. Sorry, even Heim on the main stage. He was asked by a fan about JJ, and Heim said it's not his spring stats that we're looking at necessarily. It's how is his demeanor, how is he handling the day-to-day process, that kind of stuff, more so than his spring stats. And you saying the last year's experience, this year is about proving myself, that already gives me the idea that he's gone a mission to make the opening day roster.
yeah, and I think again, thinking is dangerous. I think the team wants him to make. I think the team wants him to make the roster. I
Yeah.
think if Marmol had it his way, he would be able to plug him in somewhere. Where that is, that's a whole other conversation. But I feel like the bat is ready to play, and the defense will figure itself out. Of course, that's something scary to think about learning a new position at the major league level, but that's a conversation for another day. Um, so I want to wrap up the winter warm up stuff and then just leave what's left as spring training is less than a month away. I said it at the beginning, but if you want to see all this stuff from this past weekend, make sure you go over to my Twitter, Mr. Fantastic 17, or the Redbird Rundown YouTube. That's where you can see all those interviews in full, as well as some of the clips in our podcast kind of talking about day one. But it seemed like definitely young and old, and I'm saying old in quotes here because old is Alec Burleson at 27 or 28. They're all on the same page, understanding of the situation, and they could be easy to be like, oh, well, it's going to be just a rebuild. But I think this team takes that rebuild and they're like, let's prove ourselves. So that was really cool to see. All right. I know we've been talking a little bit, so I want to snap back to reality and of say where we are at this moment. There's been some news on the rumor mills kind of going around. Chaim Bloom has been successful checking off items on the to-do list, trading veterans, getting salary relief. replenishing the pitching system. But Thomas, if we were to start spring training next week, do you feel comfortable with where the Cardinals are right now, understanding this is a rebuild? If not, what do you think needs to be done in order to get you to that point?
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with the way the roster looks overall. I think there's a lot of room for players to have time and to prove themselves and get some log some innings. I do think we've heard a lot of rumors about right-handed bats. I wouldn't be opposed to maybe like one more flyer minor league deal with invite to major league camp relief deal, maybe even a veteran starting pitcher, that type of thing. But I also think we need some answers on the trade front. Is Donovan going? Is Donnie staying? What about JoJo Romero? We've got too many catchers still, I think, on the 40-man roster. Is something going to happen? So even just like some cleaning up of the roster, along with maybe another couple of small minor additions off to the side.
Yeah, I saw you write about the catching situation the other day, and that was something that going into the offseason, like this is something that we need to keep an eye on because it's true depth that could fill needs, and it just never really seemed to happen after that.
Yeah.
The right-handed bats are interesting. Bader was brought up at winter warm-up, obviously to a rousing applause. I don't know if he's super realistic for this current year, whether it's what he wants or what the Cardinals want. So we've heard Miguel Andujar and Austin Hayes over there, and like you said, Donnie, for the team and for him personally, probably wants some of that clarity. Marmol was asked about, do you think he wants that? And he's like, yeah, but we can't give it to him. If we could, there would be an answer. So that is, again, something that we need to figure out for the trade front, not just with Donnie, but then also with JoJo Romero, who just kind of seems like he's just around. Seems like there's a week of rumors, a week of nothing, a week of a couple murmurs, and then just back to nothing. So I agree that the relief corps, there hasn't been much done. And I think you need to do some type of high velocity electric flyer every single year, regardless if you're in a contender or in a rebuild. Thomas, any last thoughts before we wrap this thing up?
No, I'm just ready for spring training, honestly, at this point. Let's get the guys out there to Jupiter. Let's see some clips of some guys swinging the bats. And then you got the World Baseball Classic, too. Should be a great time the next month or so.
I'm getting ready for the reports of somebody being in the best shape of their lives. We've never seen him so strong. We've never seen him so whatever. I'm excited for that stuff, especially as of right now. It's -10 here in Chicago. We're supposed to be pushing negative real feel of -30 on Friday. Which if that's the case, then that means school's canceled. So I'll deal with -30 for no school on Friday. So as
That's
winter
another
warm up,
podcast episode for you then, right?
yeah, catch me Friday on a live stream if the internet's not frozen. um, Unfortunately, the winter warm-up was unable to bring its heat up to the Chicago North. So I want to thank Thomas for taking his time to talk about the weekend, see where we're currently at as far as where the Cardinals stand. And with that, I want to conclude another episode of Cardinals on My Time. But before saying goodbye, I want to thank Thomas. And if you're new to the show, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. But Thomas, let these newbies also know where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm over on Twitter. You can also find everything I write on redbirdrantz.com there. Always open to conversations on social media, so long as they're mostly friendly. That's my only request.
Mostly friendly might be pushing it. But thanks again to Thomas. I am Scott Plaza. This was Cardinals on My Time. Thanks for hanging.